Hi, everybody. Last panel of the day, last session of the day. Let's go, let's do it. My name is Matt, and good on the TICTeC organizers because our panel directly follows what Felix and Becky talked about. So we're going to talk about what are community-led AI audits, building on public AI, building on public engagement with AI. My name is Matt. I'm here with my colleagues, what should I say, Eloise, Yung-Shuan, who will present right after me. I run something called the Civic Tech Field Guide. It's a crowdsourced directory of all our type projects in the world. We have over 12,000 tools, organizations, open data sets that you can take and use. The point is to help find each other. And today, we're talking about a project that we did with an organization called Eticas out of Spain. It was an EU-funded project through Next Generation Internet Search Program. The examples we'll be talking about today are automated decision-making system examples. Eticas is now sort of pivoting to also include generative AI, but ADS systems you might think of, ones where an algorithm, maybe even a hard-coded rubric, but it might decide where your kid goes to school. It might decide what kind of resources someone gets from a local police department in the case of domestic abuse. These are really important life decisions that algorithms are already making for us in places around the world. Auditing AI, I was excited to learn that this is a practice because as a campaigner, it sometimes feels like the world is techno-deterministic, which means we just do anything that's technically possible and that private sector wants. And auditing AI for me was exciting to have another tool in the toolbox for campaigners of a way to push back against the assumed rollout of AI on top of everything we do. And just in the context of that, those of us here today presenting this are not auditing AI to perfect a technical system. We're not looking for 100% accuracy in a bad criminal justice thing that puts people in jail. We are doing it as a way for communities to have a power and a say when tech is rolled out on top of them. You've heard examples like the ones Becky gave and probably others where a lot of AI systems are just rolled out without much thought whatsoever to the socio-political context in which they exist. And obviously mistakes happen and people are hurt by those mistakes. So audits are also a way to look at the actual results of an AI system instead of its lofty principles. It's a new science, it's an emerging science. Even where the audits exist, sometimes they're done in-house by AI producers. And that's why today we're talking about community-led AI audits, where the actual affected communities get to be involved in the audit. They are subject matter experts in their own lives and often more informed than some of the engineers that are designing algorithms to affect them. And then, they're untested. When we talk about public AI, a lot of this is marketing from tech companies to local governments, local school boards that might be run by volunteers that as much as any of us are having trouble keeping up with the weekly changes in AI. So procurement can be tricky. People aren't always up to speed. The marketing, they make a lot of claims and promises that don't always bear out. And most importantly, by doing these audits, we have an excuse to work with communities to talk about what kind of tech they want in their communities. And that means that maybe we're doing it at a technical level, which we'll talk about today, how to run an actual audit with the code level and the data. But there's also other aspects to a community AI audit, like a campaign or a litigation case, right? Where we can work with partners across the community to take on these algorithms in different ways. And just to point to some of the field that exists, there's the International Association of Algorithmic Auditors. There are individual government departments doing this work. One great example, in the city of Chicago in the US, they had procured a system called ShotSpotter that was supposed to detect gunshots. It didn't work really well. It sent a lot of police to the wrong place. And their internal unit for Inspector General did the research and decided not to buy it again when the contract was up for renewal. Community advocacy groups like our partners at Twin City Innovations Alliance, which basically help translate between the community and the tech. And then, of course, in the Civic Tech Field Guide itself, we have a category for AI auditing with almost 30 examples now of other organizations doing this kind of work. So I'm going to turn over to Yung-Shuan now to talk about actual case study of where we did an AI audit.
Thank you so much, Matt, and for queuing me up. I am one of those people who audit algorithmic systems. Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for still being here with us at past 5 p.m. It's usually after hours, I think. And my name is Yung-Shuan. I am an independent researcher in algorithmic auditing. I used to work with Eticas Foundation as an AI auditing specialist. And just to advertise myself, on the side, I also do civic technology research on deliberation and AI tools. OK, back to the topic. So here I'm supposed to tell you how exactly you can do community-led AI auditing, but I want to tell you that, first of all, there is already external algorithmic auditing guide that's available online on Eticas Foundation's website. There's also a whole Python library that's available for use for any prospective AI auditors. And finally, just earlier this year, Greta, Gemma, and I, we wrote a short introduction on exactly step-by-step how to do a community-led AI audit. So today, I don't want to go through all of the steps. That's too many steps and too late in the day. I will just go through one of the cases I did when I was still with Eticas. So here's the story. A few years back, Eticas Foundation did an algorithmic audit on ride-hailing platforms like Uber, Cabify, and Bolt. What they were trying to find out was these platforms tend to use algorithmic systems to manage their service provision. They determine how much you're supposed to be paying for your trip. They determine whether there's a driver available around your area. They also determine, based on real-time market demand and supply prediction, they will try to nudge drivers to go around different parts of the city to make sure that all the demands are met. And that's the problem that they started with, and when they finished the study, they found that, interestingly, some poorer neighborhoods in Madrid tend to face higher prices than richer neighborhoods. And one of the Eticas Foundation's partners, the Roma Secretariat Foundation, sorry, I can't say that in Spanish, short for FSG. Thank you so much, exactly. Yes, I'm gonna stick to FSG, sorry. So they came to us and asked us, okay, Roma people, which is a historically often discriminated against group in Spain, they tend to live in poor neighborhoods. Does that mean they also face higher prices? So that was the problem that we got handed, and we started to list out all the different suspected problems that might come with it, and we suggested a bunch of methodology. So now, here's the time to briefly tell you, if you want to do community-led AI auditing, there are 3 steps. First, figure out the problem. Second, come up with a plan. And third, execute said plan. It is very easy, but I want to let you know first, as we are developing this entire methods of including communities and getting their concerns, et cetera, to be featured, we were doing all the audits on the side as well. So there's a lot of learning experiences with us. This time I want to tell you what we did, what we could have done and should have done, and what you could be doing if you want to center communities' needs. So first of all, what is the problem here? The community is concerned about price discrimination based on geographic locations. And one thing that might be going on in the back of your head is that, does that make sense? Now, only by working with the community members, we learned that a lot of Roma people live in a little bit like socially excluded areas, and they tend to be pushed out by social housing or public housing policies, et cetera. They also face a lot of, eviction, frequent eviction from wherever they're living. So a lot of times they live in self-secluded and substandard settlements outside of just major urban areas. And in this study, we try to focus on Madrid because there are so many different cities in everywhere in the world, basically. So yes. Only by working with the community members, we realized that there's a lot of social-political tension at play that affects the living conditions of Roma community people. And they also tend to face certain socioeconomic hurdles, for instance, like discriminations for jobs or like just educational level, et cetera. So with that, what we're trying to do and work with the community was to at least get data on where they live. It turns out that because they're constantly discriminated by the governments, they tend to not share this information with the government because they will find you out and then evict you. That's not really great. We don't have this data somewhere else on census, so that's how we have to gain it from the community. Now, what we could have done is to try to actually talk to the community members themselves, the Roma people. But suffice to say, we haven't done that yet, and later I'll tell you that we have a shocking discovery about that. What you could do during this time is actually to try to establish direct contact with the people that are already trusted by the community members, so you can directly get their experiences and then surface potential biases and harms and form hypotheses for your testing. There's another very critical thing is that when you're doing the stakeholder mapping, you have to realize that the user of the algorithmic system is not exactly the same as the affected communities. For instance, like with the employment algorithm systems, the users are HR people, but affected people are the applicants. Now, we're trying to make a plan. So we identified that there is social-political, socioeconomic issue right there. We also identified there's ethnic composition of different neighborhoods. So we use these 2 different criteria to try to determine which neighborhoods we're going to be testing. That's the map right there. I'm not going to zoom in, but basically we try to find out who are richer, who are poor, and where are the Roma people. And we also identified different testing routes based on common reasons for traveling. So we hypothesized that for a person to go out of their neighborhoods, usually it's to go to the nearest commercial center, to go to city center, or go to the nearest hospital. And then finally, we decided that we're going to use a fake account or sock puppet account, the fancier way and the probably legal way of calling it. We created an account to submit trip requests to Uber's platform so we can get the data and then try to analyze it. I will skip this part because I believe that the slides will be shared. More importantly is what we found. So finally, executing the plan. We submitted not 120, we submitted like 240 trip requests at different times of the day in order to test like, oh, maybe there's a peak and off-peak hour situation. And we got the statistical analysis of trip data back. What's very interesting here is that we didn't really find much information on the price discrimination. There is not a lot of statistically significant results. But what we found is statistically, it's very significant that most Roma riders or people who originate from Roma neighborhoods, they can't really find drivers around. And when they can find drivers, they tend to have to wait longer than people who are hailing a ride in richer neighborhoods. So what we realized is that actually from the data, service reliability is the main issue. Now, this is the time when we went back and talked to the community and the community representatives. We did semi-guided questionnaire. We also interviewed informally with the FSG field workers who actually visit these Roma sites frequently, almost on a daily basis. What we realized was that these neighborhoods suffer a lot of stigmatization. It's usually associated with criminality. It's usually associated with poor infrastructure. Therefore, taxi drivers don't like to go there. And what the problem is, when there is not much taxi driver going there, you can't really hail rides. Historically, Uber uses algorithms to predict market demand and supply, and that's based on historical data. If there is less historical data on this front, they tend not to send drivers around there. This is how social exclusion patterns can also extend into the digital. And Uber's algorithms might just be inadvertently picking up this pattern and then diverting mobility resources away from the people. It's a vicious cycle. Now, I came up with two different ways that we could potentially test it. We can test it with real Roma people's name on the account. So previously, it was just a generic name. And then we can submit the trip request. And this time, we can really hit send order. And then we can see if these accounts tend to get canceled more than non-Roma sounding names. Or another way to do this is to automate a bot to draw out geofences by changing the origin location inch by inch or meter by meter so that we can find out, actually, is there a zone in which Uber just doesn't really operate well? We wanted to do it, but after talking to the community, we paused the project. The reason is because they came back with their own concerns and told us that these areas are already very stigmatized. The more we try to dig deep into this, the more we are solidifying this conception that these are bad neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods. The media attention to them will actually not be really useful. This is a time that I want to say, when we're doing this kind of algorithmic auditing, there are different considerations that you must take into account. You're not just writing a piece of report that people can take away and do something. You're actually writing something that will affect someone else's life. So for us, it's very important that we translate technical findings into actual meaningful insights so that they know, or the affected communities know exactly how they're being impacted. And then we also want to ensure meaningful human intervention in here. What's wrong, or what's interesting about Uber's algorithmic platform is that there is no human oversight in the process of service provision. Maybe that's not great. And finally, if we want to take mitigation steps, it has to be in line with what the communities actually need. So in this sense, we paused the project. We didn't do the 2 new methods, but we continued the report. It will be coming out sometime this year, I think. Soon. And moving on to Eloise.
Hi, everyone. Last speaker. Yay. So I work on this project both with the TICTeC field guide. I'm helping to bring in some more deliberative participation kind of principles, but also looking at, we're currently working on this audit that's, I'm gonna skip it because actually it's, there's gonna be some more information. It's very early on for now, so I'm gonna be talking about something else for now, but for the sake of time, I'm just gonna skip that one. But it's basically an audit on vape detection technologies in public schools in the US. because we've seen that there's, the hypothesis basically is that there's a school to prison pipeline. I don't know if you've ever heard of it in the US, but that's the kind of approach that the Notice partner has been looking at, and seeing how technologies that have been implemented in schools, public schools, have been actually reinforcing that school to prison pipeline. So, skipping. There you go. So, just to give the background, I am from a background of tech and democracy in general, participation, deliberation, and digital democracy, but have been more and more into deliberative AI governance. This is what I'm going to try to do. So this is a very theoretical framework. This is an opportunity. I really want to talk to you guys about it. If you have any feedback, please let me know. But basically, it's trying to bridge. I often feel, and I feel like at TICTeC as well, we all have our different silos of what's the best solution for democracy, or what's the best solution for AI governance. This is kind of an attempt to bridge both deliberation and AI governance, and also bridging deliberation and AI auditing. So it is using deliberative principles of inclusiveness, informed decision-making, independence, and transparency. So those of you that don't come from deliberation, the deliberative exercise, citizens' assembly, etc., have for goal to really create this space for informed decision-making by having generally 3 steps. So it's learning step, deliberation phase, and then the last one, decision-making phase. So it's basically applying those kind of approaches to deliberation to AI auditing. It's also questioning the time and space we're doing those AI audits. Are we doing them within governments? Are we doing them in partnership with NGOs, like we've been doing at Eticas as well? And the question is, when are local governments acquiring technology? Where can we do AI auditing the earliest as possible in AI procurement stages? Are those exercises supposed to be adversarial or not? So are they supposed external exercises, or should they be done internally in governments? And the spaces as well. In deliberative theory, there's a lot of theory on what kind of space you're creating for deliberation. So it's posing exactly the same kind of questions. So I took Yung-Shuan's kind of planning phase and execution phase and tried to apply deliberative principles and participation principles. So choosing the AI system to audit, we've seen more and more examples of public observatories of AI systems. So there's the EU one that is the AI Observatory. There's a French one, a public registry on algorithms. So I think my take here is more like, how can we make a platform where people can actually say, this morning I was deciding my daughter's school. It was an algorithm that actually decided on my daughter's school. And that's a platform where we can actually, as citizens, report the kind of systems that are dictating our daily lives. Then taking on Yung-Shuan's steps of preparing and collecting data sets, getting the data out, and then organizing a datathon. So not putting deliberation aside from all the other techniques of participation that we have in the space. So using a datathon of, for example, that would invite journalists, CSOs, and adversarial actors, civic hackers that work on this data set of the algorithm to identify biases, potential harms, etc. From this datathon, getting as an output data findings, and then inputting in a deliberative process those findings as the learning phase. So what can we learn from those findings as experts? Who could we invite as well in the deliberative sessions as experts so that citizens can ask questions? I put here that deliberative sessions could be either with affected communities in most sensitive cases, for example, of AI that's been used for women victims of sexual assault, for example. But it could also be the wider public, so that depends on the AI system and the research question you have in the first place. And then, as we do in deliberative theory and deliberative practices, we co-write the recommendations to improve AI system. That model, I think, could be done at different stages of AI procurement and AI policymaking, but I think it would be interesting to kind of test it out and think about it also together. Good on timing? Cool. And then I think there's a few resources that you want.
30 more seconds? 30 seconds left. There's no sign for 30 seconds. Okay, so we have some things to give away to you. If you're having trouble keeping up with public and civic AI, it's all at civictech.guide/AI. That's across GovTech, participatory platforms, data labelers, political campaigns, and journalism. We also have a weekly newsletter that helps you mostly all new stuff that launched that week. So, as things become available, like this guide to algorithmic auditing that Eticas has published. These slides will be available. And a Python library where you can do your own AI audit. It's open source, it's on GitHub right now. And so yeah, here's some resources for you. And obviously we're all around all week to talk. Thanks.